I first noticed a game called The Indifferent Wonder of an Edible Place and found myself interested. When looking through Steam, I realised there were 3 games made by the same people with similar lengthy titles, so I decided to play the trio and see what they were like. There's been a game made each year, the first being a Museum of Dubious Splendours made in 2018, and the next 2 being made in 2019 and 2020. There is a 4th, Under a Porcelain Sun, which is not yet released. The creators are Studio Oleomingus, which, according to the credits of the first game, consists of only 2 people and is based in India. I don't actually know if I'm saying it right, but that's what I've decided to say. Reading the Steam description of the game doesn't really tell you very much, since it uses a few uncommon words, the meaning of which don't really make sense in the context. Prosaic is a word usually used to mean something dull. Spurious means fake or false, and irreverent means disrespectful. So in simple, this says it's a quiet game about dull objects and fake histories, and is supposed to be a disrespectful rumination on what an archive is and how people remember things. I think in an attempt to sound poetic and eloquent, they've blurred out what they were trying to say. The dull objects and fake histories part is close, but I think they meant mundane rather than dull. The way the game works is that you go through a door and then are given a story in text. The stories are a mix of tales about men and gods and objects, written like myths and legends. But at the end of the tale, you then move into a room with the object that's the subject of the story in a large model. In all of them, the object in question is actually a normal item. The aim of it all is really to show that you can embellish a story about anything to make it seem mysterious and important, when actually it's just a normal thing. And that's pretty much the game in a nutshell, where you read the story and try to guess what boring normal object it's talking about. It's a clever idea, granted, but once the point's made, that's about it. The game's visuals are nice and bright, despite a few clipping errors and strange perspective, and there's not really much to control. The camera drags a bit, but you don't really have to turn it far, so it's not too inconvenient. Each time you enter a display room, there are multiple doors, each with a different symbol that holds a different story. The stories apparently come from In Dubious Splendour by Mir Umar Hassan, again something else I don't know whether I'm saying right, who wrote his works in a mix of Urdu and Hindi, which makes them hard to translate. Also difficult to transcribe apparently, since there are a fair few spelling mistakes scattered through them. They were interesting enough, but not really that memorable, since they were disjointed from each other and there were confusing new names to learn in each one. The source material's importance is that it was the first case of argument over authorial rights, since Mir Umar Hassan wrote it. However, someone else tampered with it before its release, so no one was sure exactly how much of the final product belonged to the original writer. It's not bad as a showcase of short stories and how fancy words and perspective can change your expectations and obscure the truth of what they're speaking about. The models and environment in the display rooms are pleasing to the eye, but for a game, there's not a lot more to it. I've said these dreaded words before and I'll say them again. It's not really a game. It's got a couple of pretty rooms, but the stories are questionably written and not deeply compelling, just walls of text. The idea is quaint, but it's not exactly revolutionary, and you could probably burn half an hour maximum by multiple plays to see all the stories, but my play only lasted 20 minutes. I feel like I'm committing some cultural offence here, but I'll give A Museum of Dubious Splendours a 4 out of 10.